In this video, I'm going to show you how to sound like Wilkinson. We're going to split this video into 3 sections. We're going to work on an intro, then we're going to work on a build-up, then we're going to work on a drop. And the best way to think about the structure of drum and bass tracks is to work in 16-bar phrases. Let's get straight into it. So the first thing we're going to do is pick our BPM, and that's going to be 174. And then the next thing I always do is I put my reference track in the reference track slot here, and then I adjust it to the BPM of the track. On FL, you simply right click on here, auto detect, go to the BPM and type in the BPM of the tune, which is 174. So in this case, it's not going to do anything because the project is already 174. And then I will just cut off any empty spaces. There we go. And then whack it here. And now it will be in time. Now, if you want to do this on Ableton, it's a pretty similar setup. You just use the warp feature and then type in the BPM of the track and then line it up as you would like this. Another cool feature you can do is you can add time markers. So down here, I can add a time marker and I can whack intro in here. Then I can whack build up here after 16 bars, and then I'll just keep adding these time markers every 16 bars so I know exactly what I'm working with. So drop 1 part 1 and then another 16 bars later, 4, 8, 12, 16. I can add drop 1 part 2, and there it's all nicely laid out for us. So the next thing we want to do is we want to find the key of the track. So in this case, the track is in F minor. So I'm going to recreate the track based on that. So let me take you through the very first thing I did, which is to create a piano melody. And for this, I used a plugin called Scalar on Felt Piano. And then I forced the scale into F minor, and I recreated the chords in use to this. So I got F minor, E flat major, and then D flat major. And now if we look at this on the piano roll, it looks like this. So notice how I've used multiple octaves for this as well to get it to sound really large. So the first 4 bars is 3 different chords. So 1 bar of chords, another bar of chords, and then 2 bar of another chords. And then after that, it continues in F minor, but with new chords. So let's listen to the new chords. And these chords are actually the same. So this chord is the same as this chord. This chord is the same as this chord. And this chord is the same as this chord. They're just in a different order. And then for the second part of the intro, I've added to the second chord of here, I've added another note here. And then I've added to this one, I've added another note up here, just to get it to feel like it's moving. Let's listen to this. So that's the first part. Now let's look at the other element I added here, which is simply a mallet style instrument. So you'll need some sort of synth to create this mallet, or you could find a sample either on Splice or in your sample library, find the F note and then create a one shot with it and then turn it into a melody. I've just used Nexus in this scenario, and I found a mallet that I thought sounded quite similar to the original track. And then what I've done is I've automated some reverb onto it on the first note, and then I've just changed the automation effect at the start of each bar. And then I've added some delay to it here and some EQ here just to get rid of any lows and boost a bit of the highs. And then you can see the reverb automating here. And if you want to learn how to automate, you literally just control and grab it along like this. And then you right click, create automation clip. And then it'll appear down here and you just right click to create, right click, delete. And you change the amount you want to apply it for here. So step. There's also an impact on the very first beat of the bar here. It sounds like this. And then on top of the mallet and the piano, there is a pad that goes over the top. So it sounds something like this. And that is the intro complete. Now moving on to the build-up. So the piano stays exactly the same, and the mallet stays exactly the same for the first 8 bars. And then it gets a little bit more complicated towards the end. So I'll show you. So it stays the same here. And then we just increase it to another note here. So this is an F. And it just like progresses the track up to the drop. The main part of the build-up is to progress the track. So we're going to do a lot of layering now. So using the melody that the piano played, what we can simply do is copy it across to lots of new elements and then layer it through that. So here we've got a nice plucky pad that I just found on Nexus again. And then we've got a violin playing, which sounds pretty cool. And then on top of this, we've got another pad playing. And altogether, these 3 sound like this. And then with the other elements, it sounds like this. And then on top of that, we want to add some drums now. So we're just going to add a hi-hat, and we're going to automate the amount of EQ that's applying to it. So if I open this, it will show you it automating based on here. So to do this, all I've done is grabbed this, found the automation part, which is this bit, and right click, create automation clip, and then I've gone in and manually edited each point to make it sound as organic as possible. And there we have the build-up. So towards the end of the build-up, in the last bar, the hi-hats stop. And then we have this little snare pattern, which has some reverb that automates onto it, as you can see here. So it sounds like this without the reverb, and this with the reverb. And that just is like a snare fill before the drop. Very simple. And we also have some little cut-off elements. So some of the pads might like run into the drop and make it sound really like messy. So what you can do is like slowly filter them out, like I've done here. And then it doesn't sound as messy when the drop hits. You can leave some of them going into the drop, just depends on how you hear it and how it sounds to you. So let's move on to the drop now. The first thing to do is create a basic drum loop. Turn off all the elements and show you one by one. So we want the first kick to hit on the beat, and then the second kick to hit off the third beat. And then we just want to repeat that. So it sounds like this. Now this kick drum is actually part of my brand new kick sample pack. It's got 20 kick drums made from drum and bass producers. So if you want to check that out, it's on my website. Now let's add a snare. So there's 2 layers to the snare. There's like a tight snare, which sounds like this, and that will hit on the second and third beat. So and then just repeat it. And then we've got another snare, which is like a heavier hitting snare, but I've tightened it up as well. And then I've added a little automation here to make it match this one. So now our drums are sounding tight. As it's a liquid track, we want it to sound like tight and snappy. And then we want to add percussive elements. So we want to add hi-hats, more hi-hats, and then rides. So let me show you the rides first. So this is just a sample that I found on Splice, and then I've changed the BPM to match the project. So I've gone into here, right click, auto detect, and then typed in 144 because that's the BPM, and then switched it to E3 generic. And then this is just super quiet. And you can already feel the track moving. And then next, I've just used a hi-hat loop from my Havoc production suite. To add more movement, and then I've added my own individual hi-hats here, and overall it looks like this if I zoom in. Just make these look a little bit bigger for you. There you go. Feel free to have a go yourself at creating this sort of drum loop. And it pretty much just copies and pastes all the way along. So now let's have a look at the bass. So we've got a respace for the drop. Now let's hear it. So this again is from Havoc, and this is just a respace, so it sounds like this. And if you want to recreate it, feel free to have a go. So this envelope is going into the level, and then the effects, there's just a little EQ. And there's no actual post-processing on it, but there's a little bit of reverb connected through here, as you can see. And then I've just got Valhalla Room on and a bit of EQ. And this is playing a similar note progression to the chords in the intro, but it's just one note since it's a respace. We don't want the respace to have chords, otherwise it would sound absolutely crazy and not good. So it's going F, D sharp, C sharp, D sharp, F, C sharp. Now you might remember that little pad we had in the intro, this one, which is quite an aggressive pad, and then I've just EQ'd out some of the mid-range. Now we're going to add this back in to the drop over the respace, so it sounds like this. Because without that, it sounds a bit boring. This just adds a layer to it. And then finally, what we've got here is some various effects, the drop hits. So I've just added a down filter, a little splash effect, and like a glissando style effect as well. And then one last element we've got is like a vocal atmosphere effect in F minor that I found. And it sounds like this. And I've just whacked that in at a really low volume, and it just sounds really nice over the track. It's like a little effect over the track. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed, please leave a like. Let me know in the comments what you'd like to see from me in the future. Make sure to check out my website where there's some sample packs and some courses. And also, if you'd like to grab the free cheat sheet, that is in the description, completely free. I'll see you all in the next one.